Well, hi guys, I'm Celestial Shadows, and welcome back to Princess Evangile. Last time we finished the prologue, and now we're on chapter 1. So, back to Messiah. Can't sleep. I was wide awake as the dawn drew near. There was no comparing the bed I was in to the worn-out mattress from my cheap old apartment. Even so, I couldn't sleep a wink. I still can hardly believe it, though. I had been living in this room for several days now, but I still felt like I was living in a dream. I was in a dorm in Vincine's private girls' academy, the Thousand Leaves dormitory. It was a complete women's paradise, with the teachers and staff all female. I stuck out like a sore thumb. Why had they let me stay there then? There was a reason for that, of course. Without even thinking about it, the events of that night came flooding back to me. The night we met. Rise-san's words. And let me remember her voice. It's like a destined rendezvous. Her smile, as she said them. How should I explain it? We looked at the schedule and found that the last bus had left much earlier, so we began walking instead. We were heading towards Vincine's Girls' Academy. It was a 30-minute walk. It was a 30-minute trip by bus, so it was no easy walk. And it was in the mountains, so the trek was mostly uphill. Even so, I was filled with such a curious sense of exhilaration. The task didn't feel tiring at all. It became colder as night passed on, but even that was strangely pleasant in its way. Are you really certain you want to walk the whole way? You've been outdoors since last night, after all. I'm fine. Are you okay, Rise-san? I am fine, of course. There's something quite enjoyable about walking the roads alone like this. Her smile was dazzling. I couldn't take my eyes off of her. Walking side by side with her like this, I couldn't shake the thought that fate had played a role in our meeting. I suppose I should tell you my purpose in all of this. The reason I wonder, night after night, is because I've been searching for the right type of man. So are you looking for a fiancé? The right type of man? A man like you, Messiah-san. But of course, I had no idea how I should go about finding such a man. So I simply walked, aimlessly. As you might suppose, it was very inefficient. The requirements were extremely strict as well. You must have the right character, and you must be able to enter a new school beginning this year. If I may be honest, I was unconvinced that I would be able to find such a man myself. And this time, I had almost given up hope. I even had the Guardian chasing after me, as well. The Guardian?
実は学校の守衛さんなのよ。
That group of four from before. They're actually our school security. Oh, well, I thought that from the uniforms. That explained why they spoke so politely, right up until they thought I was a pervert. But why was school security after you?
私が不良だから。要するに校則に反して学校の外に出ていたから。
Because I'm a delinquent. What I mean is, I broke the rules by leaving school grounds.
春休みが始まる前は学校側にも認められていたんですけれどね。
Even though the school used to allow it before spring vacation began. The school did?
けれど学校側が設けた期限は3学期いっぱいだった。だから今は校則違反ということになってしまったの。
But that was only supposed to last through the third term. So at the moment, it's technically against the rules.
最初はバレなかったんですけれどね。今日とうとう見つかってしまって、それであんなシーンを演じていたというわけ。
At first, they didn't catch me, of course. Today was the first time. That's how we ended up the way you saw.
ほんと疲れたわよ。バスに乗ろうとしたらやってくるんですもの。いきなりマラソンが始まってしまったわ。
I really am tired. If I had taken the bus, they would have caught me. I ended up running a marathon. A marathon? You ran all the way from the school to the station? That's amazing!
私も必死だったから。バレたということはもう活動ができなくなることを意味するわ。であれば計画はそこで頓挫する。
I was desperate after all. If they caught me, I would have to stop. And then my entire plan would be put to a halt.
私は諦めたくなかったの。とにかく最後の最後までは。
I didn't want to give up. At least, not without doing everything I could. The school approved at first, which means your plan has some connection to the school, right? She nodded. So, what is your plan?
学校の変革。
Reforming the school. Reforming the school?
バンセンヌが女子校ということはマサヤさんもご存知ね。実は今共学にするという話が持ち上がっているの。
As you know, Vincent's is a girls' school, but lately there has been talk of making it co-educational. Co-educational? I was shocked. There would be a huge change even for a normal school, and Vincent's was a school with such a long history.
なぜそんな話になったかというと、生徒数が減ってしまったから。けど男子を入れれば単純計算で倍になるわね。
The reason why is because we're losing students. If we allowed boys to join, simple arithmetic suggests that our numbers would double.
私の祖母が理事長だから個人的にも聞くことがあるのだけど、経営が厳しいらしいのよ。端的に言ってバンセンヌは経営難なの。
Of course she is. My grandmother is the board chairwoman, so I know firsthand the high costs of running the school. To put it plainly, we have financial problems. Financial problems. Well, the threshold does seem high.
敷居？
Threshold? There's a high entrance fee, right? That limits you to people who can afford to go.
そういうことらしいの。
Yes, that appears to be the reason.
校舎も建て替えて財務も悪化している。とにかく従来のやり方ではいずれ立ち行かなくなるということははっきりしているらしいの。
We've rebuilt the main school building, which hurt us financially. At least, it has become clear that we cannot continue doing things as we have done.
はっきりしているのになお変えられないというのはきっと伝統校としてのプライドのせいなんでしょうね。
But despite all this, we still resist change. This must be attributed to the pride we feel at being part of a traditional school. Yeah, I can imagine.
理事会は紛糾を続けた。もちろん理事はみんな心情としてはバンセンヌの伝統を守りたいわ。
The board of directors has been in chaos. Naturally, they all feel an emotional attachment to preserving Vincent's traditions.
でも厳しい現実というものがある。もしも万世のが将来消えるようなことになったら、それは最悪だもの。
But the reality cannot be ignored. If Vincent were to disappear entirely in the future, that would be the worst situation possible.
学校の変革はいわば事前の策よね。原理主義者はそんなもの許せないけれど、現実路線を取ろうという人も当然いる。
School reform is our only alternative. The traditionalists oppose it, but there are many who are willing to follow the course reality demands.
それで実に数年も揉めていたのだけど、とうとうある日理事長が裁断を下したの。
After several years of debate, the chairwoman finally made a decision.
それは見学の精神に立ち返るというもの。
To return to the school's founding principle.
理事長は席上こう言ったそうだわ。理事会の対立は数年に及び、もはやこの場において結論を見出すことは不可能なようです。
At the meeting, the chairwoman said, "The board has been debating this for several years. It is clear that we cannot come to a decision ourselves."
そこでこの問題は生徒自身の手に委ねることにしましょうと。
As such, I propose that we leave the question to the students to decide. Leave it to the students?
バンセンヌの見学の精神、それは自主、独立、自尊。
The founding spirit of Vincent's independence, autonomy, self-respect. In other words, make decisions yourselves.
もともとミッションが設立した学校だから、そういうフロンティア精神は尊ばれているの。
It was originally founded by a mission, so it has a bit of that frontier spirit guiding it. Mission? You mean like special ops? Of course not.
作戦？いえ、この場合は宣教団ということ。バンセンヌってキリスト教系だから。
Special ops? No, I mean a religious mission. Vincent's is a Christian school. Oh.
もうとっくにミッションの手から離れているけどね。それはともかく。
Of course, it's distanced itself from the mission now, but even so.
理事長の裁断が正式に承認されて、早速具体案が検討されたの。
The chairwoman's decision was approved, and a concrete plan was devised.
見学の精神は結構ですけれど、いきなり共学の是非を生徒に問われても困惑するしかないでしょ。
It is one thing to follow the school's founding principle, but to spring the question of integration on the students now would only confuse them. Yeah, I guess that's true.
だいたい前期からの生徒ともなると、男性というと父親や兄弟しか見たことがないなんて人もザラだわ。
Many of the students who have been with us since primary course have never met a man besides their father or brothers. That's amazing. They had never seen a man before? Boyfriends would be totally out of the question.
それでは判断しようもないでしょ。そこで期間限定、規模も限定、要するにお試しみたいな形の共学を始めることにしたの。
They couldn't make an informed decision, so the board decided to begin a trial integration for a short time and on a small scale. I see. I was starting to get the picture.
ただそうは決めたものの、理事でもある校長先生が強硬な反対派で、そのために計画は骨抜きにされてしまったわ。
But once that was agreed upon, the head mistress, who was firmly opposed to the idea, decided to water down the plan substantially by only allowing one person in at a time. That'd really water it down. She watered it down?
だって学校でそうと決めたなら正式に募集をかけるのが当然でしょ。
Normal.
それはしないというのだから。
Too ahead of myself. Normally, the school would recruit through formal application, but they won't be doing that for this. If there's no formal application, how could boys get in?
それが私がしていたことというわけ。
I was going to find them. That'd be the longest journey ever. Huh. So you were like the scout, Rise-san? So that's what you meant by the right type of man.
そう。それで相手に話が早く通じるようわざわざ制服を着たりしてね。
Yes, and I wore my uniform so that I could communicate my intentions more quickly to those with whom I spoke.
でも校長ったらひどいのよ。なんて言ったと思う？
But the headmistress was so cruel. What do you think she said to me?
そこまで生徒に任せるなら男子も生徒が見つければいいですって。あんまりだわ。
If we're going to leave that much to the students, let them find the boys as well. It was too much.
でも押し切られてしまった以上仕方がないわ。みんなひるんでしまった中、私は真っ先に手を挙げたの。
But she forced the issue, so there was no fighting it. While the others hesitated, I raised my hand straight up.
なぜって私は改革派だから。
Because I was on the side of reform. Rise-san, you want the school to integrate?
ええ。
Yes.
私は万世のを愛しているわ。だから卒業した後もずっと残っていてほしい。
I love Vincennes. That's why I want to make sure it's still here after I graduate. I see. There was an old saying, eagles don't catch flies. It was certainly a noble sentiment, but to adhere to that even in continued decline was a different matter entirely. A painful reform or a slow death. Risa-san had chosen the former.
校門が見えてきたわ。
I can see the school gate from here. Ah, finally. Since we had been talking the whole way, the long trip seemed to pass in no time.
今言った通り、学校に通える期間は限定なの。もちろん、共学という結論になれば、引き続き卒業まで通えるけれど。
As I said, your time here will be limited. Of course, if integration is approved, you'll be able to remain until graduation, but...
それでもいいかしら。
Is that acceptable to you? By limited, how long do you mean? Probably like a month or something.
その、1年なの。年度末にグランデボート総選挙があって、その時に決まるから。
Well, that's a lot longer than I thought. Well, 1 year. At the end of the year, we'll conduct the grand vote, a popular vote that will determine your fate. 1 year? It really was short. I still had 2 years of school before graduation. But that was only if the school voted against integration. There was still hope. But more importantly, if I refused, I would have to say goodbye to Rise-san now. I would leave Gigaoka behind, go to live with my mother, and probably never see her again. I couldn't stand that thought. I wasn't going to let it in here. Overwhelmed by that feeling, I nodded. Okay, I accept those terms.
本当にいいの？
Do you really? Yeah, it's still better than my current situation. Homeless. I wasn't even exaggerating.
ありがとう。私、本当に嬉しいわ。
Thank you. I'm truly glad to hear that. She placed a hand on her chest and let out a deep sigh. Then she looked up at me. Her eyes appeared dewy in the moonlight. I couldn't believe that my decision had made someone this happy. That realization sent a new surge of happiness welling up inside of me.
なぜかしら。
I wonder why. Huh?
やっぱり助けてもらったからかな。私、あなたを見た瞬間からこの人しかいないって思っていて。
I suppose it's because you saved me. But from the first moment I saw you, I thought, he must be the one.
本当、よかった。
I really am. So glad.
Hi?
Yes? Oh, it's... I decided not to mention my vague feeling of deja vu, and instead brought up another subject. But are you sure you won't get any trouble from the goons? I don't think those guys are going to give up until they get what I owe them.
まあ大丈夫でしょう。バンセンヌは結構セキュリティはしっかりしているわ。何しろ女性しかいないことだし。
Well, it should be fine. Vincent's has an excellent security. It's an all-girls school after all.
それにガルディエーノを味方にすれば頼りになるから。あんな二人組、きっとなんてことはないでしょう。
In addition, if you have the Gardain on your side, they're quite reliable. I'm sure they'll have no trouble against that two-man gang. I see. I'm glad to hear that.
じゃ、行きましょう。こんな嬉しい気持ちで帰ってこられるなんて。ガルディエンヌに追われた時は夢にも思わなかったわ。
Well, let's go. After the Gardain chased me, I never dreamed that I would return feeling so triumphant. When we arrived at the gate, a different Gardain appeared. Risa-san explained the situation, and they let us pass without issue. Wow. Cherry trees are beautiful.
ええ、本当に。
Yes, they truly are. If this were a public park, it would surely have people coming from all over for night viewings of the trees. That's how beautiful they were.
この桜はね、バンセンヌの名物の一つなの。4月になると、緊張でいっぱいの新入生をここで出迎えてくれるんだわ。
These cherry trees are the pride of Vincent's. When the new students come in April full of anxieties, these trees are here to greet them. Wow.
マサヤさんも言ってみれば新入生よね。
I suppose you are a new student as well, Messiah-san. Flowers in full bloom did seem like they were here to meet me. I had spent the entire year running away from people. But now, there was a place that wanted me. That made me so happy.